My shining belt buckle.
Are we live?
Yes.
Oh.
Everybody just saw my belt.
Hey!
Hello, Internet.
Hey, welcome to Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk. My name's Robert Lamb.
I'm Christian Sager.
And I'm Joe McCormick, and I'm in the baby stool today. So we are the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works family. This is not the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. This is Trailer Talk, where we come on here and talk about movies related to recent episodes of the show. Just this week, as part of our horror-themed adventures that we do all October, Robert and I did an episode on the game of Werewolf.
All right, guys, help me out here, and I think it'll help out the audience, too. I wasn't on this episode. I know this game as Mafia.
Yeah.
So what's a brief rundown of how this game
Okay, well, so it was originally known as Mafia, as we explained on the episode. That was its first name. But then it eventually got repackaged with the superior fluff of Werewolf. Because otherwise, it's a parlor game about criminals murdering people.
Yeah.
It's better to get into a parlor game about secret werewolves
Lycanthropes.
killing people and eating them, and then the town having to enact vigilante justice on everybody.
It is a wonderful sociological experiment to play with your friends. And to make it clear to the audience, this is not a game that you have to go out and buy. Anybody can play it. You just find the rules online, and you can play with your friends.
Yeah,
Or better yet, listen to our episode.
What do you need, like at least four people?
No.
You need more. You got to have the absolute minimum. You got to have 6 people.
Okay.
You probably need more than that to have a really good game. I think that starts somewhere at like 7 or 8.
So you've got a werewolf. My version always had a nurse, and there was a cop, right?
It depends. There are lots of different versions of the game. So the basic mechanics are that there is a night session and a day session. Or not session, night phase and day phase, and there's a moderator of the game. And at the beginning of the game, the players are assigned roles. They're either a villager or a werewolf, and sometimes there are these other roles. And in the night session of the game, all the players have to close their eyes, and the werewolves are asked by the moderator to open their eyes and select one of their friends to kill that night. Then the morning comes, that player is told that they're dead, and they're removed from the game. If you've got a good moderator, they'll come up with a good story about how the disemboweling occurred.
And if you're removed from the game, you get to keep your eyes open, so you get to see
Yes,
who.
but you have to keep your mouth shut.
Yes, right.
Because you're a ghost at this point.
Yes.
It's
There's werewolves and ghosts in this game.
But then you're in the day session, and during the day phase of the game, all the villagers have to confer to figure out who the werewolves are, and they select somebody to enact vigilante justice against. Then that person is also killed. The goal of the villagers is to kill all the werewolves. The goal of the werewolves is to outnumber the villagers.
Can the werewolves make other werewolves?
in some variations of the game, but
not
those
in the
are,
standard
Yeah,
version.
not in the standard. The great thing about Werewolf is that you do have these additional roles you can bring in. There's sort of standards like a seer or an innocent child that can glimpse werewolf activity in the night.
Okay.
And then there are other additional fun roles like the Cupid, who picks 2 star-crossed lovers, so if one dies, the other one throws themselves off a bridge.
In our episode, we proposed somebody should create the character class of a RoboCop. So the village has one RoboCop that enacts justice every night.
And we actually heard from a listener who said that they've used a similar role, a vigilante role. But that's the great thing, is that you can run with the pre-existing roles, and then you can just make up your own rules and try them out and see if it breaks the game, see if it makes it more fun, see if it works with the number of people that you have playing.
My favorite thing about the game was when I got to be the moderator, because you get to choose how to describe to the town how somebody was killed overnight. Now, when it's a werewolf, it's probably usually just like they were eaten or their limbs were ripped off or something.
I mean, but there's infinite possibilities within there. How much was eaten? What
There's
parts
so many
were
ways
eaten?
to eat your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
And then one of the things I love to do is, and we did this in our in-house game that we played and used parts of on the podcast episode, is I like to have everybody pick a role in the medieval town, and then that gives you addition, because if they're a cobbler, then I guess what was left of them was found inside some wooden shoes, that sort of thing. You get to embellish the gruesome nature of the crime scene.
Good. So my favorite part is still intact in the werewolf
very much
version.
so. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I guess the way that we're going to celebrate this episode today is by talking about werewolf movies.
Exactly.
Right? And we got a couple for you.
Right. So we talked about it, and we decided, there are a lot of great werewolf movies that people already know about. There's American Werewolf in London. There's Teen Wolf. But usually here we try to skew into more obscure territory. So we're going to talk about some weird, wonderful, lesser-known werewolf movies today.
Yeah, and they're all older films. I tried a couple of newer films on for size. It didn't quite fit.
But hey, we should remind you that if you're out there watching right now and you want to leave a comment, let us know what your favorite werewolf movie is, or ask us a question. We'll try to answer in real time, or just let us know your thoughts. You can do that below, and our friend Sherry here is going to let us know if we've got any good comments coming in. So we'll try to get back to you.
Can always download the podcast on any podcast platform. Apple, Google, Stitcher, whatever. We're on all of them.
That's right. All right, well, let's go ahead and dive into our first film. This is one that we mention on the episode because it's probably the werewolf movie that most resembles a game of werewolf.
Right, so this is basically an Agatha Christie ripoff, right? This movie is from 1974, and it's called The Beast Must Die.
Yes.
And it's like a whodunit murder mystery where people are gathered together at the island belonging to a rich billionaire who loves to hunt, by the way.
Yes.
And he's like, well, I've determined that at least one of you is a werewolf, and we'll figure out who it is by the end of the movie.
The cast is really fun in this because you have Peter Cushing. You'll notice his magnificent cheekbones in this trailer. You also have a 35-year-old Michael Gambon, who doesn't look a day over 48 in this. You have Charles Gray, who of course was in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, he's the criminologist in Rocky Horror, but he's also, if you've seen the James Bond movie Diamonds Are Forever, he's Blofeld in that, and this guy is the driest actor in the world. He's like, 007, yes. And in this movie, all his werewolf comments are just like, no, this nonsense.
Michael Gambon kind of looks like a British Charles Bronson in those photos.
He does.
Yeah,
he has a
yeah.
fabulous mustache in this.
There's a lot of good shaggy hair in it, man. And you're not joking about the cheekbones on Peter Cushing. You feel like he could like cut diamonds with his face in this movie.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons that CGI Peter Cushing in Rogue One is so alarming. Is that cheekbones of this nature shouldn't be real, and they certainly should not be seen in HD.
It's actually going to be canon that his cheekbones become lightsabers.
So this was directed by Paul Annette, who is a British TV director. It was written by Michael Winder, a British TV writer. Winder also co-wrote a 1977 movie called Welcome to Blood City that I kind of want to check out. The premise is people awake not knowing how they got into this place, which is an old west town where people are constantly killing each other. Sounds kind of Westworld-ish.
Yeah. Before Westworld, though, right? Because the Westworld movie was like 77, 78?
That sounds about
Something
right.
like
Yeah.
that, yeah.
That sounds about right. The main character in this movie is played by Calvin Lockhart, who is famous for starring in a bunch of early 70s blaxploitation movies, and he's pretty great. He also, if you've seen Predator 2, he plays King Willie. Remember King Willie?
Yes, the sort of like the Jamaican crime lord.
Yeah, he's like a drug lord, and he does like what's the term for like throwing bones and divination? Anyway,
I think that's it.
Rattling them bones, right?
Yeah,
well,
that's it. That's a
he gets killed by the predator.
Roll the bones,
he
bro.
gets killed by the predator in the alley, but he's like real tough. He takes on the predator. He's got like a cane with a sword in it, I think.
Yeah.
He's no Danny Glover.
Now, one of the great things about The Beast Must Die is it takes the whodunit aspect of the film to new heights.
Right.
Because there's a sequence that's basically an early version of the same scene we have in The Thing. You know, in The Thing, they do the test with the blood samples to see who is the Thing, to finally reveal it once and for all who is the murderer, the monster, etc. Except in this, they're passing a silver candlestick around.
Yeah, they do that early on, and then later in the movie, because Peter Cushing says, now, of course, it would be easy to coat your hand in a thin layer of plastic. So they instead figure out that no one would cover the inside of their mouth in a thin layer of plastic, so they insert a silver bullet into each person's mouth
Wow.
to see if it causes them to react.
And does it?
Yeah, it does. We find out, well, there's a twist ending. I don't know if y'all want it spoiled.
There's
Maybe
more
I should
than
say
one
that.
werewolf.
Yep. What do you know?
But it's great. The wonderful part I love about this is that there is a werewolf break. There is an intermission in the film before the big reveal that allows all the viewers to chat amongst themselves, discuss their theories on who the werewolf is, and I feel like we need more of that in our films.
Have you discerned who the werewolf is? It's got like a narration, and it's got a ticking clock that goes down.
That's fun.
Yeah,
I wish movies still had stuff like that.
Yeah, like this
Little
upcoming
gags.
Murder on the Orient Express adaptation. I will be disappointed if it does not have a werewolf
If
break.
Kenneth Branagh doesn't lead you through a
Yes.
discussion with your friends and neighbors.
So something that's funny in this movie is the horrible mismatch between the setting and the soundtrack. Now, the setting it's almost like the time period is kind of ambiguous. It does appear to be set in modern times in the 70s, but it's like modern times by way of a Victorian setting.
Yeah, it's like a Hammer horror movie, except it has helicopters in it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's very weird. But then the soundtrack is just like 70s movie score funk with waka-chicka, waka-chicka guitars and like this loud horn section. It's crazy.
Oh, and then tell everybody about the werewolf effects.
Oh, the werewolf effects in this movie. The werewolf is a dog. It's just straight up a dog. It's like not even a person in a dog costume. No, it is a large black German Shepherd, and that's the werewolf.
It's not even an Irish Wolfhound?
No, they let you get a good look at it, too. It's like it's just a German Shepherd.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they spent all their money on helicopters and funk.
Right. And
Cushing, that sweet Cushing.
It's got that thing also from 70s movies. Y'all know this thing where in these movies somebody shoots a bullet at a vehicle and the vehicle explodes in a huge fireball. Usually it's a car. This movie it's a helicopter.
I want to go to this island. It sounds like a great vacation.
Yeah, Werewolf Island.
Yeah.
Hey, do we have any comments coming in?
Janine says that Twilight is a great werewolf movie.
Okay,
Janine
Janine says Twilight is a great werewolf movie. I have never seen a full Twilight movie. I've seen parts of them. I know what's his name with the smushed face is the werewolf kid, right?
What's his name?
What is that kid's
Taylor or
name?
something?
Yeah.
Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift is the werewolf in the Twilight movies,
The
right?
the second Twilight. I'm not going to get on a big
it
Twilight
Taylor Lautner?
defense.
That sounds right.
Thing here, but the second Twilight movie has a really nice soundtrack.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and looks
my-
pretty good. I mean, you look at it, it looks good. It's perfectly watchable.
And is it Michael Shannon? Who's in it in the later ones?
Oh.
What's his name from Masters of Sex?
Oh yeah,
He's
yes,
great.
Yes. He played Wesley Snipes on 30 Rock. That guy.
Yes.
Michael Sheen, right?
Michael Sheen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, so
and
over the
he's
top.
also
like
in-
Tron level over the top in that.
Yeah. He's also in the Underworld movies, which are sort of parallel
Oh
with
yeah,
those Twilight
he's
movies.
great in the
He's the leader of the werewolves.
Yeah, there's I think it's the third Underworld movie, the one that's all flashback
Yes.
with all of the better actors intact.
Yeah,
Like, that's
Oh,
a fun werewolf
so it's
movie.
a
I
story
like
within a story?
No, it's
Yeah,
just
it's
straight
a
up
prequel.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
okay.
prequel, and they said let's leave all the worst actors out of this.
Yeah.
Let's just do vampires versus werewolves in a medieval setting, and it's fun. It's a fun flick.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Before we go to the next movie, we should probably remind you, if you're looking at us and saying, who are these people? I don't understand what I'm seeing. We are the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works family. This is not the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. This is the Stuff to Blow Your Mind trailer talk video series where we talk about movies related to recent episodes of the show. This week we had an episode about the game of Werewolf. It's a party game that actually has some interesting things to teach us about deception and artificial intelligence and so forth. And so if you would like to leave a comment, you can do that. Our friend Sherry here will let us know what the comments are. If you want to ask us a question, let us
Anything.
know what your favorite werewolf movie is. Let us know what the worst werewolf movie you've ever seen is. It might be on our list today.
What is the worst werewolf movie you guys have ever seen? Are they on our list?
I mean, I want to have a good ironic answer for that, but I did not plan for it.
It's probably for me, and the thing is, I can say that it's a bad movie, but it's not. But I kind of love it in the same way. There's one of the Santo movies where he wrestles a werewolf.
El Santo?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the wrestling.
Yeah, and it's not good. I love it, but it's not a good movie at all.
Did Van Helsing have a werewolf in it?
Oh.
Yeah,
Then
and
that's
by the
probably
way,
the worst
Did you
one.
know there's a new Van Helsing coming out? Like next
Like they
year?
had to reboot that.
Well, I don't know that it's a reboot necessarily. I think they're just taking the same character from Bram Stoker's book and just making another movie that's completely unrelated.
But it's
Yeah.
not like Hugh Jackman. Wait, was
No.
it Hugh Jackman?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman with all the CGI monsters.
I think there were vampires, Frankensteins, and werewolves in that, just like Monster Squad.
Yeah.
All right, what's up next?
The next movie we're going to look at, we're going to go to 1984 for a little ditty called The Company of Wolves.
Oh, this is a fantastic movie. I was assigned to watch this in graduate school, actually.
I can see why.
Yeah.
Now, this movie is nuts. It is just crazy. I agree in a lot of ways it's good, but also it's like it's like the most inappropriate movie. Who is this movie for? Because it's structured as if this is a kids movie. So the main characters are children. It is basically a fairy tale.
Kind of like Creep Show or something like that.
Yeah, it's
right?
like a Creep Show, but with fairy tales.
Yeah,
It's a fairy tale. It's about kids. It's structured as like an anthology with like, for kids with short attention spans. But it has the most like hard R content of anything I've seen.
It's incredibly graphic. If you've ever read any Angela Carter, it makes a little more sense because she's really into, I don't want to call it horror, but like taboo kind of imagery in her prose work. And she wrote the screenplay for this based on one of her short story collections.
Yes. It's loaded with, there's nudity, there's violence, there's just sort of inappropriate subject matter, and the most body horror heavy werewolf transformation scene ever, where we're seeing glimpses of it here, where he rips his skin off, and then he's just all like exposed muscle, and then that changes into the werewolf.
I would say this is David the Gnome via David Cronenberg, but like even worse than Cronenberg.
But everybody always talks about the Stan Winston transformation scene from American Werewolf in London as like the best werewolf transformation scene. But this movie, I don't know, this movie might be better.
Well, this movie at least said, let's do, what's the most original thing we could do? What hasn't been done before? And then they did it.
What if we have a guy just like rip his own face off in chunks? And they did it.
Yeah, it's like it's really like a
wild
Clive Barker transformation.
Yeah, you know what?
scene,
There's
Or
a lot in
Brundlefly,
common with Clive Barker. I remember from grad school very vaguely that there's a pretty strong feminist reading of this particular film.
Yeah, it's got a lot of very interesting sexual themes that are, again, totally inappropriate for children. There's a lot of undercurrents about sexual violence in
Well, it is a Neil Jordan film,
Yeah.
most famous for The Crying Game. Among, a great director. He's certainly not a one-film director.
Yeah, it's a great movie though. I recommend go out and if you're looking for a werewolf movie, go out and try to hunt it down and get a hold of it.
It's also got a great cast. So it's got David Warner in it in his most shaggy hair phase of all time. When he was looking like he was wearing one of those 70s lady wigs.
This guy looks like Bill Hader, the guy who was just behind us.
Oh yeah, he's sort of a werewolf in it, and he's
quick David Warner bit. He recently, I saw an interview with him where someone was asking him about some of his least well-known parts and some of his more famous ones too. But they asked him about Quest of the Delta Knights. Remember from Mystery Science Theater 3000?
I haven't seen this one.
It's a horrible, like Ren Fair-esque film where he plays both the villain and like the good wizard.
Okay.
And it's terrible, but apparently he had the biggest time filming. It's one of his favorite film experiences.
Did he mention Tron?
I was going to say.
Yeah, they asked him about Tron and all these, but the Delta Knight's right up there.
Interesting. Who else is in this? Angela Lansbury.
Angela Lansbury. She is rolling hard as a granny in this movie. Yeah, she gets her head knocked off by a werewolf, and
it's right behind us.
It shatters as if it's made of porcelain. There's no blood.
I has always assumed Angela Lansbury was made of porcelain.
Yeah,
but she is made of porcelain.
She tells her granddaughter these incredibly inappropriate stories and talks to her about how when the bloom goes out of the relationship, the men turn violent. And oh my God, it's so weird.
This is a precursor to her role in Beauty and the Beast as the teacup.
Oh yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So this movie has Brian Glover in it. Brian Glover, the stupendously thick Yorkshireman and former wrestler who was in American Werewolf in London. He's the guy in the tavern that they go, or the pub that they go to.
So he's your go-to werewolf guy?
He's also, you remember this? He's in Alien 3.
Yeah, he's one of the...
Is he one of the prisoners?
I think he's the warden of the prison.
Oh, is he? Okay. That's right.
Remember, he's standing up giving that lecture to all the prisoners.
Oh, and he gets picked up in the cafeteria. Yeah. Okay.
This movie also has something I haven't seen in a while. It goes 3 deep on story embedding. So it's a story within a story within a story.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really cool movie. Where did you guys find it to watch? Is it readily
It was quite
available?
an odyssey.
I wanted to watch it legitimately. I was looking for a way to do that, and I could not, so I watched a YouTube rip.
Okay, but so there is one on YouTube. But yeah, it's probably hard to find on streaming, I would imagine.
It's not on
an
Amazon.
Movie.
It's not anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, and we even tried the physical store. It was checked out.
This is definitely the kind of movie that deserves one of those 4K fancy pants steelbook Blu-ray re-releases. It's really good.
Every film on our list deserves that.
Does the next one?
Yes, it does. The next
Wait,
one.
hold on. Before we go into it, should we remind them?
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, so if you're just tuning in, you don't know who we are. We are the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works family. This is not the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. This is Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk, where we come on here to talk about movies related to recent episodes of the show. If you're not subscribed to our podcast, you should go check that out before you do anything else. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Where would that be? Apple, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, where else? Stuff like that.
You named all of them.
Yeah.
No, there's like 300 others, but we're on all of them.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what I realized that we forgot to mention? The reason why you guys did an episode about Werewolf is because it's October.
Right.
And on Stuff to Blow Your Mind, every October we do all Halloween-ish themed episodes.
Right, so you guys did a couple episodes. You did one on the science of It,
Uh-huh.
the movie It, and you did one on why we laugh sometimes when we're afraid.
Yeah, and we just recorded one that'll come out next week, maybe, on spirit optography.
Yes.
So that should be interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know, we might even be able to get a cool episode of Trailer Talk out of that, because we talk about a specific horror film titled
Horror Express.
Yeah.
Which also has Peter Cushing.
That's
in
right.
it.
That's why Peter Cushing just will not stay in his grave this month.
Really, October is the month of Peter Cushing.
So is there a horror movie where Peter Cushing stabs someone to death with his face?
If it is, it's probably one of those, because he did that string of Hammer films where he plays Victor Frankenstein, but Victor Frankenstein is a villain, like a solid villain, not this whole tragic, confused character, but just like a nasty character.
Isn't there an iteration, one of those Hammer movies where he's Van Helsing?
Probably.
That sounds
yeah.
right. Oh, isn't he? He's sort of the
Is he
Van
Van
Helsing
Helsing?
character in the Satanic Rites of Dracula.
I think so, yeah.
We've mentioned this before, but one time Christian and I watched a version of Satanic Rites of Dracula with the autofill subtitles on, and so it had a hard time understanding Peter Cushing's accent, so he'd be on the phone with somebody, and it would say that his lines were something like, "The boat carrying General Freeballs."
And of course, also Christopher Lee, who's both in the Horror Express movies,
That's
but
right, he's
also
in
in
that.
these Hammer movies. Okay, we got to get to this next one, and I'm going to preface it by saying I saw not this particular one, but the original film of this when I was like 5 or 6 years old by accident.
Yeah, you saw The Howling,
I did.
Right.
which is a fun flick in its own right. It's
Yeah.
Joe Dante, right?
I think that's right, yeah.
This is not The Howling. This is The Howling 3,
The Marsupials.
The Marsupials from 1987, and it is Australian to the max. It is an Aussie-tastic film.
It is, as I think you said in an email chain, it is what? Audacious?
Audacious, yes.
So in the late 80s, I don't know if you guys remember this, I feel like in the late 80s, American culture and movies in general went through kind of an Australia craze.
Yeah.
So there was like Crocodile Dundee, and you had The Rescuers Down Under, and you had Young Einstein with Yahoo Serious, and all these movies like this.
Don't forget Mad Max,
Max.
The Road Warrior. That was 81, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that came earlier, but yeah, like by the 80s, it was like it had gone full mainstream.
Yeah.
And so I guess maybe this was part of it. I don't know. Maybe they wanted to cash in on Australia enthusiasm.
Well, but okay, it has been a long time since I've seen Howling 3: The Marsupials. But if I remember correctly, isn't the premise that these were-beings, because they're not necessarily werewolves, are able to, they have like pouches like marsupials, so
Yes.
they're able to breed their own young.
Yes. So that's a huge. There's so many fantastic elements. I don't even know if we'll have time to talk about them all in here. But yes, you have a whole subspecies of marsupial werewolves.
Right.
And
they talk about how the divergent evolution of like how on the other continents you had regular werewolves, and in this one you had the marsupial strain.
And we do also encounter Russian standard werewolves in this.
Okay.
There's this character named Olga, and she's a Russian ballerina, and she's doing the whole spinning around ballet. There's a word for that. She's doing the whole ballet
Pirouette?
spin. Pirouette, yeah. And she starts transforming into a werewolf. It's the
Werewolf.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same scene that they use in the Black Swan movie, the Aronofsky film, except with a werewolf. Like I feel like they ripped this film off for that sequence.
This movie also has great marsupial nun assassins.
Yes.
Like a character is being hunted by a trio of nuns who are marsupial werewolves.
Yes, a lecherous director, I believe.
This
Yeah.
stuff is very upsetting when you're like 6 years old. I just want to reiterate.
So this movie stars some people who were in some other things. Barry Otto was in the Dolph Lundgren Punisher from '89.
And he's generally like a big deal in Australian cinema and TV. Like as are a number of the people we're going to talk about here.
God, these
But I
special
guess
effects.
you could say the main character in this movie is a young lady marsupial werewolf who is played by Imogen Ansley, whose name in the movie is Jerboa. I know we've talked before about bad movies that say the characters' names too much. This becomes especially noticeable when the name is Jerboa.
Yeah.
So there are just scenes where for minutes at a time it's Jerboa, 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 Jerboa.
And she's one of the marsupials, yeah?
Yes.
Now we have to say this scene going on behind us here. This is a scene within a scene. This is a movie within a movie.
Yeah.
There's like it's a bad ripoff of an American Werewolf in London's transformation sequence.
Yeah.
So don't judge the entire film based on this.
We should also point out, since we're nerding out about special effects, American Werewolf in London had the special effects done by Stan Winston, I think, who we've already mentioned. The original Howling had special effects done by his protege, Rob Bottin, or Rob Bottin. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Did he do this one?
I don't think he did Howling 3.
No.
I think he was just on the first Howling movie. But the special effects in these Howling movies are pretty good.
We're looking at the marsupial werewolf child, in this
Which
film.
is just, it's supposed to be cute, I think.
I think it's kinda
but
cute.
it's just hideous. It's like Mac and Me, you know, where it's clearly supposed to be cute and it just inspires revulsion.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's pretty good. There's a birth scene that's essential to note here, and we were talking about this.
It's
before
like
we
a
went on.
marsupial birth.
Yeah, it's straight up. They watched. I don't know how many kangaroo birth sequences you've watched in your documentary viewing. I feel like I've watched a lot in the last few years.
That
with
might
my
have
son.
something to do with our job.
or I just,
hope.
Yeah. Well, no, I just watch a lot of them with my son. He's super into nature documentaries.
And birth scenes?
Well, it's part of it.
Yeah.
You know? Unless you're just going to watch cutesy animal videos.
30 years from now,
No,
Robert's son
this
is
is
going to host a podcast and be like, I saw so many kangaroo births.
We shouldn't stigmatize marsupial births.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of life.
But there's the whole sequence in this movie where the marsupial child is born, and
Yeah.
she has to like lick a path for it to crawl up to the pouch through her like fur. It's wonderful.
So not to stigmatize birth or marsupial birth, but the scene, I think, is disgusting to watch.
Oh.
It's like this latex skin with hair all over it, and it's kind of sweaty. It's just gross.
I like
This
it.
is the difference. Robert's a father, and Joe and I are not. This is the difference.
But the biological attention to detail in the film is, I think, very endearing because not only do you have this, you also have a scene where you get to see Olga, the werewolf, the Russian werewolf.
Yeah.
You get to see all of her mammary glands in full wolf
She's
mode.
got tons of them.
Yeah. And
I remember that. Oh, no, I remember that.
Earlier I mentioned Brian Glover. He's not in this movie, but they got basically an Australian Brian Glover lookalike.
oh yeah, he's wonderful in this. Let's see, I think I have his name down.
He starts off as the villain, and then the movie kind of makes him, I think, tries to make him more sympathetic, and then in
Yeah.
the end he turns into a giant thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger.
Max Fairchild is his name.
Yeah.
And
Good name.
Oh God, there's just so much to talk about in this film. Like, for instance, the fact that strobe lights or flashing lights make them transform into their wolf forms.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost as if like they are people with photosensitive epilepsy, and the seizure triggers the transformation.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait. It looks like our producer, Ramsey, might be
Oh
finding
no,
a
Ramsey!
picture of the
I'm
birth.
seriously. Let's not. Please, I appreciate. No. Do not do this.
Ramsey's attempting to bring up images of the marsupial werewolf child.
Oh, I think we should maybe not.
Right now on the
Okay.
screen, I should explain that our background imagery is Bernie Wrightson's artwork from the book/calendar Cycle of the Werewolf with Stephen King, which was then adapted into the bad film Silver Bullet.
but with the great Gary Busey in it.
Oh, here we go. This is adorable, Joe.
I mean,
it's
get out of the
Look
way.
how cute it is.
That is, wow.
It's gnawing on your head, Joe.
It looks kind of like the dude in the cantina in Star Wars who doesn't like you.
Yeah, a little bit. And there's a sort of a Trumpy vibe to it, too.
Oh, yeah.
From
Yeah,
Pod
Trumpy,
People.
you can do disgusting things.
I think we might have been on The Howling 3 too long.
Okay.
Do we have one more movie?
Oh,
we do.
Wait, I have one more line. I have to mention this great line from the film, though.
Okay.
There are a lot of great lines of dialogue in this movie.
Bear in mind, these are Australian actors in an Australian film. There are more things in heaven and earth than you can shake a boomerang at. I would expect that of a
There's
fully
like a
American
checklist.
film, but
This movie is full of lines where you have that experience where you're watching a movie and suddenly a character says something where it totally takes you out of the film because you just picture the screenwriter like sitting back in their chair and grinning and being like, yeah.
Hey, Sherry, do we have any more comments that we should address?
We've had a lot of comments. You guys have been on a roll.
We have been. We're just motor mouths
Okay.
today. What do we got? Let's talk back to the audience.
Nathan Post just wanted to correct you and say that American Werewolf was done by Rick Baker.
Oh, yes. Thank
okay.
you, Nathan. So American Werewolf was done by Rick Baker. I'm mixing up all of my Stan Winston proteges. Yeah.
Mary Lynn actually had mentioned it a while back that she loves Silver Bullet with Gary Busey.
Oh, thank you.
So we should. I don't know if they can hear Sherry.
Right.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So Mary Lynn said that she loves Silver Bullet with Gary Busey.
We've
To
got
each their own.
We've got some Busey behind us here. What else we got, Sherry?
Mikey has said that The Howling is king and master of all werewolf movies, but 2 through 6, ugh. That was
Mikey,
before
Mike,
you did this.
Mikey says The Howling is king of all werewolf movies, but 2 through 6 are no good. What about part 7? 7 is a
There's a seventh
masterpiece.
one?
Oh, yeah.
Ah.
How deep have you made it in the Howling sequels?
That's the third one.
I've
as
seen
far as
1
I
and
got.
3.
Yeah.
And I want to see 2 because it's the same director as 3.
They just keep getting worse. Like, some of the sequels after 3 are much worse than 3, but they're not as crazy as 3.
Christopher Lee is in 2, I believe.
I think that's
Yeah.
right. 2 is by the same director, and it's I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember that it's very bad and very watchable.
Sounds like we need to have a Halloween screening. All right.
You mean a Howling?
A Howling Halloween screening.
Nice.
So, we got one more movie for you. If you're just joining us, Joe, we are...
Oh, we are the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a
And-
science podcast in the How Stuff Works family.
Yeah, and why are we talking about werewolves? Because we did an episode this week about the parlor game Werewolf and all the social dynamics that are involved there, and which even show up in studies. Like academic studies will use the game Werewolf to tease apart human interaction.
So
Now,
if you're
if-
curious about that episode and you want to download it and hang out with us some more just in your ears, you can go find that on Google, Apple, Stitcher, wherever you get podcasts. We're all over the place.
And hit subscribe. If you're not
Yeah.
subscribed, why not? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, is Ramsey about to... Oh, what's this? This is a dancing werewolf listening to our podcast.
I think so, yeah.
That's so nice of you, Ramsey, to have created that piece of art just for us. This is my favorite werewolf of all time.
That's Guillermo del Toro, right?
It's-
Yeah. I used to say.
It's the dad from Teen Wolf.
Oh, of course.
No,
yeah.
I've never seen Teen Wolf.
Oh, it's not good, but when you're a young under 10-year-old and you get to see this, you know, it really makes your day.
So is
Especially
it-
like when he like surfs on the bus on the school
really?
bus. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it time to do the... What?
These waves are mine.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do the last one.
Okay,
All right.
last movie. This is from 1995. This is a glorious B movie, a great piece of trash from the 90s. 1995's Werewolf, also known as Arizona Werewolf.
I've
Yeah.
never even heard of this before today.
This one was used on an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. So I feel like
Arguably one of the best episodes of all time.
yeah, it's a strong one. This is one of those one of those cases where I've probably seen the 1995 Werewolf film more than a lot of much better motion pictures.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting film.
So the basic plot is that some archaeologists uncover the remains of a werewolf in Arizona,
Okay.
and they dig up the skeleton, and then one of the scientists is a bad guy who is named Yuri, who is played by Jorge Rivero, a muscular Mexican actor who was also in Conquest
Yeah.
from 1983, which is a terrible Conan the Barbarian ripoff made by Fulci. In this movie, he plays Yuri, and Yuri is this evil guy whose hair changes in every scene. Like, he's sometimes wearing a wig, sometimes it's his real hair, it's a different haircut every single time. And literally, like, contiguous scenes. So he'll walk into a room and his hair's one way, and then in the next shot it's a different way. But his main goal is to turn people into werewolves using this werewolf skeleton. So he's got, like, a werewolf skull, and he'll, like, hit you with it. And this apparently is the same as a werewolf bite. And
What?
it infects
Really?
you with lycanthropy.
You would think they would, like, lick the bones, or, I don't know, like
No.
something a little more than
No.
just getting punched with a skull.
He just clubs this New York writer who recently moved to Arizona with a werewolf skull and turns him into a werewolf.
All right, fine.
I'm not sure why he's so into making werewolves. Like, he seems to think this will make him rich and famous.
I would imagine that this is like a dog soldiers type scenario where like he's thinking that he can like sell this to the military and they'll be able to make the perfect soldier, right?
Or maybe just like a hair growth tonic, you know? Like he's
That could be it, too.
werewolf-based Rogaine. or
But
something.
he also, Jorge Rivero, he's like very muscular and obviously very proud of it. He's one of those guys who wears very tight shirts and is always like flexing his muscles in his scenes.
Like me.
Yeah. I don't know if we've got a good shot of him and his muscles, but
If not,
they're out there.
look him up on the Internet Movie Database because his IMDb photo is him just like mega shirtless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read allegations that Rivero claims he was never paid his full salary for his work on this film, so you can imagine this would be troubling, especially since he, staked so much reputation on it.
Guys, what would you say next time that we do like promotional photos for the podcast? Should we just all go shirtless?
No.
Yeah, well, as long as we can get in shape like this, because I think Ramsey's about to throw a picture
Oh, he's
going
going
to
to show us what he looks
So yeah, Jorge might be coming in a second, but also this movie's got Richard Lynch.
Yep.
He plays an
course it
archaeologist
does.
named Noel. It's got Joe Estevez,
Oh, yes.
brother of Martin Sheen, in random scenes where he's. It's like as if he's reading his lines for the first time on the set, and he's just delivering them with maximum intensity, no matter what the content of the sentence is.
The great thing about Joe Estevez movies is that if you've seen his movie Roller Gator, then then everything he does is wonderful because Roller Gator is such a terrible movie, probably the worst film I've ever watched.
Ramsey is just like zooming
Oh,
in
man,
on
here-
this guy's amazing chest.
Look at this.
Look at this torso. I am envious.
He's put together.
Yeah,
I mean,
look at that. He's got cool jewelry.
yeah.
Why can't I be like that?
This film also has a couple of prominent characters who sound kind of like in the Bela Lugosi tradition from his early career, who sound as if they're being fed their lines phonetically and they're not native English speakers, which that's cool, but it also makes for some really funny scenes. Like the main actress in this movie, I think, is Eastern European,
Okay.
and she's got all these lines like "You and Noel is in it for fame and fortune."
It sounds good. It sounds like it's better than the worst horror movie you've ever seen, or werewolf movie.
Oh
you've
yeah,
ever
it's
seen.
it's watchable.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, it's quite bad, but it's not boring.
yeah.
Cool.
Oh, I got to say one more thing about the special effects. Since we talked about special effects of the transformation, in this movie, the werewolf looks like he has bugles on his fingers.
Oh yeah,
He's just
yeah.
got these like yellow conical kind of nail things.
And he's moving them around like nobody moves their fingers,
Right.
unless I guess they're just mega
That's what
high.
happens when you just get hit by a werewolf skull rather than, doing the right thing and chewing on their bones.
Yeah.
He also sometimes, when he's changing into a werewolf, he looks like he's conducting an orchestra. 'Cause he'll go.
Oh, he's got it behind us here. Ramsey has pulled up
Yeah.
the actual bugles.
Oh man, yeah. I wish we could play some, some classical music over this. Little Wagner.
We almost forgot to mention this movie also has a local from L.A. that a lot of people know named R.C. Bates in it.
Huh.
R.C. Bates, I've heard from friends who lived in L.A. that he would walk around the streets of L.A. reading people poems and stuff like that. He's sort of a local man about town.
Huh.
And in this movie, he plays a guy named Sam the Keeper who inexplicably lives in the same house as the main character. And it's never really explained why, except maybe, I guess he's like a groundskeeper or something, but he's always got a gun.
Oh, yeah.
And he sings this little song that goes like, weird things are coming, weird things are going, weird things are doing around here.
Oh
Hey, Sharon,
man,
we
I
got
had no
any more
idea that it
comments?
was a sensation.
Yes, we had a recommendation from EJ who said La Pac de Lopez.
Oh,
Yeah,
EJ
that is
says
a
Brotherhood of the
weird
Wolf.
werewolf
Yeah,
film.
that's a
Thumbs up.
fantastic movie. I saw the movie in the theater.
I haven't
it's
seen
really
it.
good.
I haven't seen it in many years, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a French martial arts werewolf
Yep.
conspiracy movie.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
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 It's like right after The Matrix, but then like incorporates like it's a period piece too,
Oh, yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, a period piece in a time that didn't quite exist.
I think
Right.
it takes place
Yeah.
in the 18th century, but has like all these martial arts.
That's a
and-
killer movie. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, don't go into it expecting a straight up werewolf movie. But if
No.
you go in expecting weird French martial arts, then you're in for a
That
treat.
is a great
Yeah.
suggestion.
Le Pacte des
EJ.
Loups. Anything else, Sherry?
That's it on the werewolf stuff, although Tony has said that he totally had your voices mismatched.
Uh-oh. Yeah,
Uh-oh.
there's been a lot of talk about that lately on our discussion module that people don't quite know what our voice. First of all, they mix up Joe and my voices.
Because we sound so similar.
And well, I think maybe to some people we do, but I told them that what you and I should start doing is just like really cranking up our accent. So you really like go into your Tennessee drawl.
Oh, yeah,
and
man.
I'll do like a wicked good South Boston accent guy, and then everybody will be able to tell us apart.
I reckon.
Perfect.
Worth a shot.
Yeah.
All right.
Robert just stays the same.
Well, obviously we couldn't touch on all of the werewolf movies. We couldn't touch on all of the great werewolf movies. They're all the just weird and interesting ones. But here are 4 that are worth seeing, worth chatting about.
And if you are watching this in another time, in another space, other than when we're recording this right now, we'll still respond to the comments. So
That's right.
if you're watching this the day after we recorded it, feel free to leave comments. We'll pop in. We'll chat with you. We'd love to know what your favorite horror werewolf movies are. We'd also love to know what the worst werewolf movie you've ever seen is.
All right. Anything else, guys? If not, we'll go into our great werewolf break here, and you can discuss amongst yourselves.
He learned almost too late that man is a feeling creature. And because of it, the greatest in the universe. And he learned too late for himself that men have to find their own way to make their own mistakes. There can't be any gift of perfection from outside ourselves. And when men seek such perfection, they find only death, fire, loss, disillusionment, and the end of everything that's gone forward. Men have always sought an end through toil and misery. If it can't be given, it has to be achieved. There is hope, but it has to come from inside, from man himself.